Warning: heavy political content. Please listen at your own discretion. Hello, welcome to episode 21 of the Islanders podcast. My name is James.
And my name is Daniel.
And my name's Yen.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yeah.
We actually had a few weeks off.
Yes.
But we're still on schedule for our podcast. And that's because we were doing our finals and also going back home to vote.
Yeah. Something really special for us.
Yeah, that's really special. Yeah. So today we're going to talk all about the election.
Yes, election.
And Daniel has actually prepared a little intro for us.
Yes. Last Saturday, Taiwan welcomed the 15th presidential and legislative elections. Being the first time voters, this event was especially meaningful to three of us.
Yeah.
This time, in this episode, all about the election and many events prior to the election, we also invite one of our friends, who is a politics major from National Taiwan University, to join us in this discussion to provide some professional insights into these various phenomena regarding this important demonstration of democracy. Please welcome our guest and I.
Thank you. My name is Brian, and I'm currently studying the political science department in NTU, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. It's wonderful to have you on the show. First of all, what a voice, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really suitable for radio, and you know,
such
it's
a bass,
it's a very, very good
sound,
like with a lot of presence.
Yeah.
Also, you speak quite good English.
Yes.
So we wanted to ask you, what was your learning, experience and process?
I think I have pretty much very my English learning process pretty much like everybody else in Taiwan.
Yeah.
I didn't take many courses.
So like to go to some
bilingual
kindergartens.
Brian was my high school classmate.
How
unfortunate.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, I want to focus on maybe on the speaking part. Like how did you,
like train your speaking
work on your speaking?
and work out. Yeah.
Because I like to read a lot of like international news.
Okay.
I like to watch a lot of like shows that features people. I fancy a lot of people making speeches in movies or political
cool.
speeches. I think that is very cool. So I try to mimic their voice.
Okay.
Listening is definitely a great influence to your speaking ability, I would say.
I would say that.
The performance, would say.
Is that also why you went into studying politics?
Yeah.
I think my interest for politics is actually arise from the materials I.
Okay.
Related.
Yeah. So you wanted to give us a background story of Taiwan's politics?
Okay.
Maybe give us a small history lesson.
Yes.
Okay. This is kind of hard because you see the history is quite long. So
what
I'm here doing is like you see what on YouTube. It's like you want to recap a movie in about 2 hours into 5 minutes, but instead of 2 hours, I'm about to recap history about 50 years.
Losing details.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is quite different from what you might hear from like media or you find on Wikipedia, because generally we don't see a lot of like local politics from another country.
That's true.
Internationally. So
definitely.
You sometimes you couldn't understand why the result of the election being that way. So what I'm going to do right now is telling you basically the history of the regional factionalism in Taiwan.
That's cool.
That's very important for our politics, even until today.
Some part of them maybe not so familiar for us as well. Yeah.
Even for
us
people,
as Taiwanese people.
Yeah.
Most people
it's a learning
only care
experience.
about the politics in Taipei.
Yeah.
So although I'm going to do a briefing right now, but I do recommend you listener to hear or read from like masters on these topics. Because they have better insight than me. So like Professor Wu Yushan, Wu Naide, Wu Tongli, or Wang Yeli.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
some academics.
Academic figures.
So onto the topic. Let's begin.
Okay.
I think we can like separate the entire history of Taiwanese politics after Second World War into like 3 main periods.
Okay.
First is the martial law period.
Oh, martial law.
And then the whole democratization thing. And we'll call it the transitional period.
Okay.
And the last is where we are in right now. It's the consolidation period. That is how democracy is being consolidated and turning into a real working democratic country.
Yeah.
That we are right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I'll start from the martial law era.
Okay.
Let's begin.
So basically, a lot of you probably already know that the KMT government came to Taiwan after 1949. They lost the war. They lost the whole civil war thing.
Civil War thing in China.
yeah.
Yeah.
In China. So they came to Taiwan, and it wasn't very beautiful. Yeah.
But
It's quite a history.
Yeah, quite a history. So
Yeah.
I think I'll just talk. I assume that all of you already know about that history.
Yeah, that
that
really
painful
Yeah.
part.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to tell you is what political theory will tell you. Is that yes,
Theory.
yeah, theory,
Okay.
yeah. You could take over power by shooting at people, but you can't maintain it by killing everyone. You need information to rule.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
So, or you need grounded people to go to different counties and watch over people's life, or even stop opposition from gathering up before they even consolidate their power.
Infiltrate.
yeah.
Infiltrate. Yeah, infiltrate.
Yes.
Like
and that's what
controlling
basic- yeah,
the
controlling.
power. Yeah.
So that's basically what the KMT government was doing. And they quickly realized that they couldn't control Taiwan by themselves because you see the Chinese immigrants is about only 1 million.
Okay.
A million the population was only about 1 million.
Yeah.
You had to rule over like people 10 times more than you.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did was they go to different counties. They would shoot those who oppose them, the local
Elites.
elites who
Okay.
oppose them,
Okay.
and buy those local elites who like willing to work with them.
It's
Bribe-
like
bribe them,
removing
maybe, yeah.
removing the
Removing
leaders
the-
of them.
Yeah.
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 So what they were doing is that they will give the privileges, economic privileges, and power to these local elites.
Ah.
And so they will gather informations and do the things that the government want them to do. And as long as they keep clean from opposing the KMT rule, they are free to do anything.
Yeah.
So during this time that in order to make this work, in 1950s, the KMT government actually held local elections. That's the height of white terror. So it's quite strange for like
other
for
people to
other people to
understand.
understand
You
this.
have elections when
you have
you're
elections.
doing like
During the white
dictatorship.
terror,
Yeah.
yeah.
Dictatorship.
Yeah.
Was it a real election?
It was like this. So basically, KMT was extremely smart. They knew that if they only find like one faction, that this faction will eventually come to like take over them.
Yeah.
Because they can consolidate all the power. So what they did was they found like different factions, like one or two more, even more factions to like making them having a check and balance.
Yeah.
And in order to like distribute the power, they use election.
So they fight amongst themselves.
Yeah, they fight among themselves.
Okay.
Now, make sure the KMT government can rule as long as they want. Yeah.
So nasty.
Somewhat like the hierarchy
Yeah, somewhat like
period
that.
before. And yeah, I think another thing worth mentioning is that before KMT government came to Taiwan, actually Taiwanese people are Japanese.
Yeah.
Are like
basically.
yeah, Japanese, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these people, you already see that in the entire white terror history, a lot of like lawyers, doctors, or even just general
Social
intellects.
elites.
Yeah, social elites and intellects, traditional social elites are being either dead or in jail. So the KMT government actually find people that are not traditionally considered as social elites to do this work for them. And they are important because they basically define what Taiwanese politics was going to be like up until today.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That'd be true.
yeah. So basically, I will skip the entire
Detailed history structure. Yeah.
structure. So I'll go straight into 1980s, the transitional era.
Yeah.
Time flies.
Yeah. So in 1980s, basically what happened was that Taiwanese economy went sky high because we were in the right position in the right time, and we knew exactly what we should produce.
Yeah.
Our production go very, very well and sell a lot of things to United States and many other places in the world. So we make a lot of money. So when people stop being like poor and miserable, they will start asking for more.
Yeah.
And what
China?
they want, what they wanted was that they need to has like a sense of security over themselves. They want to make sure that the profit they have can be kept, and the best way to do that is to gain power, political power. Yeah. And the tricky thing for KMT is that you see for like 50 years or so, they portrayed themselves as the free China.
Yeah.
And they actually preserved the entire Western idea-based constitution to Taiwan. They didn't abolish it. They simply put a martial law on it, and it's like, hey, right now it's dangerous. Don't use it. But it's still there. So even if you like identify yourself as a Chinese, or you identify yourself as a pro-KMT-er, you still like identify this constitution. You will see the promises given to the people. Yeah. So there are like a lot of pressure within KMT and a lot of pressure outside KMT. So these two factors, when they combine together, turn into a force of reformation. Yeah. So KMT government the governing of KMT was being very, very threatened.
Yeah.
And yes, and because of these like pressures, so there's a time-defining moment in 1987. The president Jiang Jingguo actually abolished the martial law. Starting from then, anyone who want to like construct a party or write newspapers, you are no longer considered outlaw. You can do whatever you want. You have freedom of speech. So all of a sudden, the amount of pressure that is being kept under authoritarian rule exploded. And this explosion was so great that the KMT actually split into two factions. And during this time of turmoil, you can see that KMT probably couldn't have a very strong grip toward these regional factions. So what happened was that these regional factions began to fight on each other without the discretion of not completely kill one another. So KMT government wasn't there, so they can just take whatever they want.
It's just like the warlords.
Warlords. But this is the very interesting and probably the most valuable thing in Taiwan's democratization is that we actually created history that a democratic transition without a civil war or even a violent
under peace,
violent revolution. And because of we have these systems, we have the experience of election. We know how election work, and even if it was rigged or it wasn't honest, we knew what it could be. So in these times, even these local warlords fight among each other, they still pretty much abide to the rules of elections. So they didn't. Of course, there are people dying, but they didn't just go on the street and use guns to shoot each other. So, in the ashes of this great clash, each county created a most prominent faction, and they control over everything in these counties. So what happened was that they created certain rules. For example, Taiwan in like 1970s, 1980s. Farming was still quite prominent. So as a farmer, the most important thing you can find is you will need is water. So basically these local faction control who gets water and when. So they're very, very powerful. Even when the DPP governments came to power, they still had to abide to the rules. And in some cases, DPP governments as they didn't really know how to rule over a country because they were being oppressed and didn't have enough power. So they had to rely on these local factions.
They're like the freshmen.
The freshmen.
The Taiwanese politics.
So what they were doing is that why do we see that the KMT and DPP have a very similar patterns to what politics is supposed to be called that? They had to rely on certain rules. And even in this election, these very elections, we can still see the regional factionalism have a very vigorous power in the entire election. Even if we already banned the whole bribery thing.
Even after 30 years or so, still it is very prominent power in local places.
And I've heard that actually there's still some bribery just like in my hometown or maybe some local or
there
maybe
must be,
more remote area.
In some places,
there's still work like that.
Yeah, but I have to say that some people would just frown on like the local factions. They are the symbols of not being modernized.
What
I want to point out is that is basically the biggest problem of Taiwanese politics. That think about that. What kind of people would want to rely on basically mobsters to maintain their life if they have a better options? They didn't. So the problem is that the local people, they are not being properly treated.
They have no option.
They have no other options. And even if they're having a like great life, they're not in danger, they'll still like cling to what they are familiar with. And as long as these factions keep giving like goods to the people, they are righteous. Yeah. They have the legitimacy to rule over a place.
Because they work till now. So they should be working.
And some of them even work well.
Yeah,
they even work well.
It sounds like mafia in Italy.
Yeah. So they look after their own people.
It's a little bit like family powers.
Yeah, like family powers.
In some places in Taichung or in like Hualien.
The family power is really strong. Really strong.
Actually, we call in some places we call them local kings.
Local kings.
Hualien Wang.
Yeah. Which is
they're local figures, I would say. People. It's kind of like they have a belief in them. They under their rule, they will work. Their life will work well.
Yeah. So it's basically like I will go with whatever I'm familiar
wherever
with. It's like buying a Jane. You only buy Nutella instead of other brands.
Yeah.
True.
Just used to that kind of life.
Used to that kind of thing. Yeah.
So how do you think this kind of phenomenon played into this election last week?
Well, I think the most iconic, dare I say,
iconic
example is in the Hualien County.
Okay.
The once jailed and very, very notorious candidate who abandoned KMT, his like identity of a KMT candidates, still get elected after getting out of jail. Yeah. And
it seems like he gave up all those powers that the party gave him.
Yeah.
But
he still gets it.
Actually, he still gets the power.
His influence still remains.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that prior to his rule again, there was actually a DPP legislator who worked there for like 4 years. So it was like, you already gave DPP a chance and they failed. So behind all these was this kind of ideology within the local people. Yeah.
And also, I think that something worth mentioned is that, like the places like Hualien, is maybe the information or like their connection with other counties were like more closed and like more only bound to themselves, not very kind of being influenced by where so-called like the
central
modern
government?
power, modern culture, or modern thoughts, I would say.
It's quite funny or somewhat strange to say that mountains still pose a very great barrier between counties and places in Taiwan up until today. So it's quite funny if you think of it.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe we can focus on the election this year.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of a quick wrap up of what actually the election happens this year in just the day before yesterday. Yeah. And
so I think a very easy way to look at it is to look at our votes. Look at our votes.
Okay.
So we had 3 votes, and 1 vote was for our president for the next 4 years. And then the second one was for your local legislator, which, in every city or county, we have 1 legislator who will go into Congress to represent the area. And the final one is to vote for
the party.
Party. And then the party will receive like seats in the Congress, depending on their vote percentage. Yeah.
It's called a proportional.
Proportional representative. Yeah. So from that we can see what we are trying to vote for this year.
Yeah. So on this topic, I actually, because we study politics, so we talk about among students, and we talk about this among the professors and students, something like that on classes. So I think I'll start from candidates.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we can see, probably the most, dare I say again, iconic candidate this year is Han Kuo-yu. Yeah, he's like the poster kid for this election. It's so important that you have to talk about him. Yeah. So what he represented was that you have to understand the tide changed quickly. In 2016, KMT lost all of the probably like the majority. He lost the legislator majority, and he lost most of the province, the governing force of the province. And also lost the presidential election because of in like 2014 there was a sunflower movement.
Yes, it's a large social movement in Taiwan,
and it's against China. So what KMT was doing was basically they were looking for hope, and Han Kuo-yu was the hope. Yeah, because in 2018, after 2 years of like the DPP administration, people were growing quite unhappy with very much policies they gave us, and they were looking for alternative. And Han Kuo-yu in Kaohsiung, which is the pro DPP, we call it the holy city for democracy. That's completely pro DPP. Elected a KMT candidate. That's Han Kuo-yu. So he is very, very, very good at what he's doing. Gaining support. So the KMT was like, okay,
we're counting on you.
This is our tomorrow. We need him. Yeah, we need him. And what he's representing is that I have to say this first, that I'm not saying that populism is a very essentially bad things, because in Taiwan people tend to scared of this word, but I like to say that he's basically a populist candidate. And I will deliberate this furthermore, so bear with us.
Populism.
Okay. Yeah.
What is populism?
Yeah. And there's a very interesting things that you see. KMT is a party that cares a lot about your bloodline.
Bloodline?
Yeah, bloodline. It cares about how close are you when the authoritarian government was still on. Yeah. For example, Ma Ying-jeou, our former president, he was the clerk or the secretary for the Jiang Jingguo government. So people regard him as, okay, you did a lot of good things with Jiang Jingguo, so you probably know how to rule. And in KMT, they really, really care about this.
They care about this.
Yeah. So when Han Kuo-yu took power took fame in KMT party, people were like, no, I don't like this. I really don't like this. But
they break the rule.
Yeah, he break the rule. He's not qualified.
He's not pure-blooded.
Yeah, he's not pure-blooded. But he gets the vote. So he get a vote. So every time whenever somebody say this, the KMT basically say, he get a vote though.
Yeah. I think last year KMT was troubled because they had these two parties within themselves, fighting against each other.
So what happened in the end was that they basically banished everyone who say bad things about Han Kuo-yu. These people went into different other parties, or they just get away from
and
this.
They become more extreme from their own ideology.
And because Han Kuo-yu is quite know how to say the words what people want to hear. It doesn't necessarily need to be logical or even feasible, but he knows what the losers of the policies wants to hear. So he basically rally all DPP's enemies. Anyone who opposed DPP is like, oh my, okay, let me think about this. This guy, although he's failed a lot of policy he said before, but let's give him a try. So he was the quite prominent candidate. Up until the few months before the elections. And there's another thing is that because of the whole KMT thing, so he actually had I would say unwanted tie with China. You see what China did in Taiwan is that they didn't really care who you are. They just want Taiwan in turmoil, and they just want to lay a hand within Taiwan. So I think you can rightfully assume that there's a lot of groups that supports KMT, even when nobody supports them anymore. Financially supports Han Kuo-yu because it's the logical choice. So he actually had to bear with this.
And also ideologically, KMT is a AKA for 国民党is there's a name of China.
Yeah,
in its.
Let's just translate that to English.
Okay, it's just.
So let's translate. KMD translated to English is called the Chinese Nationalist Party.
Yeah, they're just Chinese.
You know, they think they're Chinese people. So that is.
But there's some cultural and historical factors behind that. But stuff behind that. But now.
No, it's quite different.
Quite
actually.
different. Yeah.
I think Hungary wants stronger ties with Beijing because of the economical benefits that China
and also the support.
Possibly could bring. Theoretically could bring. Yeah.
I'll talk about this later because it actually didn't work for Beijing.
Yeah.
They didn't want this. Anyway, so let's go to President Tsai. President Tsai. So what President Tsai represent was that she bear a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
In her last election. So you have to understand that before like the 2016 election, DPP was actually at its lowest because you have to remember in 2008 their last presidential their last DPP president Chen Shui-bian went to jail because of corruption. Yeah. So people were like, okay, we gave DPP a chance. The truth
is they're corrupt.
Yeah, they're corrupt. They don't know how to rule a country.
Yeah.
So and President Ma was like, okay, I worked for Jiang Jingguo. I'm the inheritor,
the
righteous holder of the power.
Yeah.
And after 8 years rule, and DPP was in disarray. They didn't have a leader that is strong enough to gather everyone,
organize everyone, facilitate every organizations.
And President Tsai was you can call this a coincidence. Coincidence that she came to power as the chairwoman for DPP, and what she represent was that she was like, okay, DPP needs a new face. You need a new face. You need to tune down the entire independent things because just reunite with China, it is quite unfeasible. Yeah, and you need to focus more on the relations between the party and the industry. So what she did was actually she created a whole new faction within the DPP. It's called 新潮流. New trend. So it became quite prominent within the DPP party. Some people even because they hate this, so they went out of DPP. But after that, she basically did it. She reconstructed DPP out of her own hands. Yeah. And what she represents after 4 years of presidency was that she's the stable one. She does things very, very stable
and carefully.
You can see that even being a DPP president, she didn't talk a lot of two countries or something like that. She actually somewhat respect the constitutional structure that being passed down to us. So she was like, United States was like, meh, it's okay.
Yeah.
She doesn't make strange things.
She just make everything great.
Yeah, everything great. Yeah. But in interior policies failed and a lot of things. Yeah. And there's another thing is that during the last presidency, she actually pushed for the gender equality law and allowing gay couples to marry to each other. Yeah. And it made a lot of backlash on her. Yeah, that's true. Why I can see why young people tend to support her. Yeah, because she basically accept all the negative consequences of reform.
Yeah. Just do it whatever it costs.
Yeah, do whatever. And there's another things that made them very anxious when they see Hungary rise up. Yeah. And that's the main reason why they lost the 2018 election was that they went on a pension reform. Because you can see the pension structures in different countries were all challenged because we have fewer kids now. If you have fewer kids, you have fewer people. Yeah, to pay the pension.
Yeah,
pay the pension for the older generation. Yeah. So you want them to, okay, we have a problem right now. So why don't you just get the money back? Yeah. And for a lot of public servants, it was taking away their life hard work because when they were young,
they thought that they would get pension. And,
and it was true because when they were young, their salary was very low. So they were like, I worked for this country for 20 or 30 years, and now you want me to go lay down and die. So it created a very huge opposition for this policy.
Actually, the pension system is kind of like a structural lie to all those public servants.
Yeah, depends on your position, but she gets it. She gets it. So let's go to our third candidate.
Yes, let's do the one.
Mr. Song. Jen Song.
Yeah, he might be late, but he would definitely show up.
Yeah. He's like the stabilizer for a presidential election. When you see him, you will know that okay, we're going on a presidential election. He's been stably attend for 3 terms.
4
terms. So he always arrives.
4 terms. This year is the fifth. The fifth time.
The fifth time. And he actually called it end game, but it didn't end well for him.
And, and each of them,
he always showed up with Olympics.
Yeah. So what he was representing was basically like the old KMT, the elites that being produced by the KMT government when they're reaching to the end of their rule. Yeah. So if you look at it, it's quite sadly funny for him because you see he was basically at the same generation with like President Ma. For other people, you see quite prominent KMT leaders, and they all get high positions. But Mr. Song, when he finally became the provincial leader that is being elected by Taiwanese. Legislative Yuan decided that okay, we only have like one island left for the entire Republic of China thing. Let's not make province a thing. Let's just destroy this level of governance. So even if he's elected, he didn't have any power.
Yeah.
So the opportunity to like hold power was taken away from him. Yeah. So he held a quite grudge with that.
Yeah.
So he wants to revenge.
Yeah. He wants to take. Let's just not say take the power, as like to gain the support that he gained the position
he was longing for.
Yeah. And for like a lot of KMT supporters, he's like the more reasonable one after the entire Han Kuo-yu thing. So they will generally support him. Yeah. And there's a fourth person, although he's not on the votes we cast this year, but he's very important during the KMT party elections when it happened. It's like Mr. Guo.
Yeah.
Guo Taiming, the face of Taiwanese industry.
Yeah, that'd be true.
So he stood out. It's like, okay, I love ROC. And I have a lot of money. I have awfully a lot of money. And I represent the entire industrial representative of this nation. So what he was doing is that he said that we should stop the ideological war.
Yeah. So they just fix onto the economic thing.
Yeah. So
something more practical.
Yeah, he created quite a huge ripple.
Yeah.
But in the end, he paid the money. He paid a lot of support for KMT, and he failed.
Maybe
because Han Kuo-yu was so popular, so he held a grudge against this. And
the biggest loser.
Yeah, basically he was banished away from the KMT. So he was like, okay, now I will support anyone I want, other than DPP. So he supported the Song. Mr. Song, and he actually supported other parties like we're going to talk about the Taiwanese People Party. It's very important if you want to look at this election. Yeah.
Still, that I say, considering still traditionally in Taiwan, there DPP and KMT is such still two very different large factions of the whole Taiwanese politics, I would say. But nowadays, there's still some abuse powers, small powers. They're trying to fight up and they're trying to speak up for themselves. Yeah.
Like New Power Party.
Yeah, there's a New Power Party, and this I think it's they're gradually gaining their voices up to like the popular into popular. Yeah.
And I think the difference between this third power and the two major parties is that this party focuses more on some specific issue rather than the issue between Taiwan and China.
Yeah, and still Taiwan. I think it's quite a historical issue between Taiwan and China, is still something very well debated in the in public domain, I would say.
But some people think that this issue cannot be solved currently, so they will try to focus something more practical.
Yeah, and I think like Taiwanese people, I think most Taiwanese people got very tired of politics. Is that there's a feeling that we're always talking about, or we're just fighting, or always quarreling about politics, who wants what, independence or not, are we China or not? But they're not something concrete. They're not concrete ideas. They're not something I can
make it
fed
rich.
my family. Like I can make myself rich.
Yes.
And there's nothing practical. So some part of Taiwanese people, they got an idea that they want practical thing.
They want something
that they can look and they can touch, they can see.
Yes, who can make a law that actually help Taiwan?
Actually help Taiwan. And I think it's kind of like it's like the conservative wave all around the world.
Yeah,
it's like people wouldn't like to listen to those socialists. They talk about very great visions, very great insights, but we need something on our hands. And I think it's kind of like a shifting between two kind of ideas, and gradually I think maybe democracy, the system of democracy, maybe they'll come into a balance point that everyone can balance the practical or vision together. They can both hold what they want and make the democracy or make the politics system still work, and also they can more sustainable to the future life, maybe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So is there something special or like interesting you found in the whole election, like during this whole election campaign?
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting. I actually create a list of what the parties wanted before the entire vote thing. So like the KMT and DPP, we already know a lot of it. So I think we just skip them. It's interesting is actually the small parties, like in what Mr. Song represents, the people. What's that?
People First Party.
People First Party. Yeah, People First Party. It was like basically they were all of these small parties wanted to be the third power within the Congress, within the legislative yuan. So there are the People First Party and the New Power Party, and the Taiwanese People Party. And very interestingly, this year there's a radical pro-independent party, and it is just incredible to think about that and how quickly the Taiwanese people shift from I am a Taiwanese and a Chinese and turn into okay, I'm a Taiwanese and I want a new country. It's the name of the party is actually called State Building, Taiwanese State Building Party, and he actually won like one seat this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But I think there is something we're not talking about, but I think it plays a really great part in the whole election campaign. Throughout, like starting from May 2019, and it is what happened in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Extradition law to China. Yeah.
So like I think for those who are not knowing about this thing, it's like the Hong Kongers, they're trying to fight against the law you've just mentioned about. They're trying to fight against that, and they thought this law will like restrict it's just feels like Chinese government can take whoever they want.
Yes.
They
through Hong Kong.
They just don't care about.
So they can get political criminals from other countries or whatever. Back to Beijing. So it kind of relinquishes Hong Kong's independence.
Because Hong Kong was basically a poster child for like one country, two systems for China. And that is a proposal from China to tell Taiwan is like, hey, we have a big economy. You want to join us?
Like Hong Kong, look at Hong Kong is really good. You want to be like that? Then you join us.
Yeah, so when everyone is looking at Hong Kong, it's like, oh, it's good. And all of a sudden, police
failed.
hitting people.
Oh yeah,
and,
it failed.
It failed
Horribly.
terribly. So Taiwanese people was like,
we don't trust China
I,
anymore. Yeah,
let's not try to
basically.
I think most Taiwanese people are scared.
Yeah,
It's quite scared.
Quite scared.
And there's something just happening across the ocean, and they're fighting police and people. They're fighting each other, and there's fires everywhere, even into the college campus.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's hard to imagine. It's just like fighting a war.
Yeah,
in cities. So I think the whole social movements of Hong Kong just affect Taiwanese people so much. We're so scared.
And
we have to face that Chinese people, China government is still under dictatorship.
Yeah.
Or although they have a name or they have a structure of democracy, but in reality it's still dictatorship. So, also, aside of Hong Kong, is there any other events that you think this affects this year's election very much?
Well, I think in this year, I feel especially fierce confrontation and conflicts between two different generations and groups, like young people and elder people. Their perspective about politics is extremely different.
Yeah.
As for young people, I think most young people vote to DPP, while the elder vote to KNT.
Yeah.
I think it's quite a new phenomenon.
Just like you and your parents vote for different parties.
Yeah. The war within the family.
Within the families, yeah.
I think it's like this kind of thing happens every year, but every time when there's an election. But there's a very important thing that I think there are four main issues stacked up together.
Oh, really?
In these years, and they're all like separated into two positions, and each position are quite consolidated with
each other. Yeah, with itself.
The first layer is the ideology, because you see in Taiwan we already experienced like two doctrines of how do we deal with the whole China problem.
Yeah.
First, the President Ma's conceding doctrine, that is to like, all right, we will stand off from our defensive position, and we will allow like the cross-strait like economic communication. Yeah. So, and in the process, they will create a lot of like economic benefits for Taiwanese people.
That'd be true.
And it was a huge failure when the ACFA was signed, and then students and people went on the street and actually
social movement just stops the whole
whole thing.
The English student even take over the legislative yuan.
Yeah, it had a huge impact on Taiwanese society. And the second is the DPP's doctrine of confrontation. That is we rely on the United States. We rely on the international society. Yeah. We stand with like an ideology of democracy. We're saying like, we are the fortress of democracy, standing right in front of China. DPP government tried to put Taiwan in the context of the entire, like
the global democracy,
holy war
team.
So these kind of doctrine was actually being supported and being opposed by many people in Taiwan. Yeah. So it's like the two doctrines are fighting against each other in Taiwan right now. And the second is the policy and social value. It's for example, like the younger generation, they will think that like the environment is as important as economic growth.
Yeah.
And they will say that we need to like level up our economy, not to rely on like the production, the old kind of production, or put people into like technological field,
those industries make things polluted.
Yeah. And however, in the older generation, they will think that we should let the nation do it, and we should develop like heavy industry. And these young people, they are just not working hard enough. While they were complaining in their whining age, back in the days, they were working in factories.
Young people are all strawberries.
They are strawberries. So what they're thinking was that we need a traditional economic growth. We need this module. But the younger people were like, we need to find a new way, and the world has changed. We can't rely on this old thing
And still, the way is still changing and changing very fast.
Yeah. So, and there's other social value like how important is equality.
Yeah.
For example, the gender equality issue, and there the like the generational distributive problem, like what I said about the pension reform.
Yeah.
The young people were like,
it's not my business.
So different group, different ages, they have their own ideas on. Yeah, I want this, but I don't want that.
Yeah,
and those doctrines fight with each other, and those ideologies struggle with each other. But someone said that I want practical thing. I don't want something just is. All of them is just in your imagination. They just don't came into real life.
Yeah.
But actually, we all of us know that what your thoughts turns into what you do. Yeah. So although those conflicts or confrontations just all over our whole society, maybe in these few years, but still, I think there are still other perspectives that we can just look at and trying to understand why that group of people think like that, or why that another group, or like the youngsters, how do they think about like the same ideological issue about China or Taiwan. So I think maybe we can talk about those perspectives after the break, and we're now going to a little break. Okay, welcome back to our break, to our show. So, before the break, we talk about some different perspectives of Taiwanese people. How do they look about the election, the whole democracy thing? But there is something definitely influential in this election, is the interference of Chinese government, and how do they interfere the democracy, the whole democracy system. So Brian, can you just give us some clue about how does your strong interference work?
Well, you have to understand that to China, their goal is always that the reunited of the motherland. So I think we had to look in the Chinese interference this way, is that it has always been there, and it will always be there. It just did change in different perspective, and they're learning really quick, really fast. They knew that back in 1990s, they threw missile at us. It actually worked in different, the opposite way of what they wanted.
Yeah.
They wanted Taiwanese people to be afraid and elect the electorate they want, but it didn't work. So what they were doing is that instead of scaring Taiwanese people
by military force,
they want Taiwanese people to recognize with them. They want them to think, okay, China is not that bad.
They want to identify them as us, as Chinese.
As Chinese.
Yeah.
So what they're doing is that you had to understand that to them, political work is the fundamental thing that the government should do. So they have the united front.
Yeah.
The whole united front thing. So they will put pour fundings into projects that make TV shows, make great TV contents and things, the quality stuff into the Taiwanese market. And they will they first give money to Taiwanese merchants in China, and let them come to Taiwan to buy our media. For example, China Times, the entire network was actually bought by Tsai Ing-wen, and behind Tsai Ing-wen,
it is Chinese government.
It's really obvious.
Yeah, very
obvious.
Before the election, there was actually a report saying that China Times has been accepting Chinese government's money. And they were like, of course, why not?
Of course, why not? Everyone knows that,
And their positions are quite linked to China if you can just find any paper. So their basic tone is that China is good. The democracy in Taiwan is just creating mayhem, and our policy is bad, and our people are being mistreated, and you should accept the great China economy. Yeah.
And most of the influence are subtle. It's very really shattered into different pieces. They just put one piece there, one piece over there, and of the whole content that media presented to their people, their listeners or watchers. It just feel like China is a very good place, and becoming recognize yourself as Chinese is a very good thing.
Constant debate in my department is whether we should denounce it, because you see that United States doing the same thing. They're using Hollywood movies saying that, okay, United States always save the day.
They're broadcasting their culture.
They broadcast their culture. So what's the difference between China and Taiwan? China and US.
US.
And there are a lot of ways of saying this, but an argument that I side with is that you had to see what's the difference of their purpose.
What is so-called the difference?
Yeah, the difference is that their purpose for their influence. China has a very
strong purpose.
Strong
I want
agenda.
to make you back.
Yeah, I want to take you back.
Take you back. Come, little brother.
Yeah, but United States was like, I want you to like me.
Yeah,
and that's all. You know, of course, if you can buy some F-16 from us, this would be nice. But the point is that I think you had to see the end, and then you see the means. Yeah. Because the means might be the same, but if the end is different, you cannot see the means the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my perspective.
Okay.
So maybe we can talk about how this byte media influence our daily life.
You said, for me, yes, I've heard of that. There are some in Taiwan. There's a lot of like snack shops, deli shops everywhere, and you can go there and grab some food, and there are TVs in their shop, and you eat and watch TV. And there's actually a campaign founded by some students. They found that why those popular local deli shops, food shops, they always their TVs are always in that media, in that channel. So they try to figure out how did it work, and they found out that actually those deli shops are getting money to turn into that channel, to change into that channel, and just make their customers watch those TV shows made by the channel. And I think that's part of the so-called interference of Chinese political power into local Taiwanese people life, the life of local Taiwanese people. Yeah.
And for me, it was like, because I read a lot of like articles on internet on social media, you see this very interesting trend is that the perspective of Chinese government or what they want us to think will actually sneak into different articles regardless of the position of this certain page, or because everybody can like write articles and give it to the media and they can post it. You see certain languages used by Chinese government being used by Taiwanese. For example, we use video as 影片, but in China they call it 视频. Yeah, so it's like they use the words, and it's just you can't say they are like actively trying to influence their readers, but you can see the influence by it. At least we can say that these writers are being influenced.
Yeah.
I think very often when we see social media, we see a lot of the simplified Chinese characters, which is also very, obvious that is written by people from across the strait. Yeah.
And there's a like content farm.
Content
farms. Like
also.
Whenever you want to make a report, you are like,
because it's very obvious for us, because we use traditional Chinese characters.
And also
it's very easy to see the difference.
And also since Google is so convenient, and actually for me, whatever I look for in keywords in Google, the first top search will be the content farm. But it is that because I recognize that website as content farm, so I won't click them. But for most people, like the most people who have no idea about what content farm is, they just click. They don't care about it. So that will be the top search.
Yeah.
So that makes difference. Yeah.
And these articles are basically biased. If, for example, you want to find that, like, if you're interested in armor or swords in history, you will say, "Oh, which army is the best?" And there will be articles say, "Chinese army is the best." It's interesting how they try to, try to promote their culture,
phrase their culture.
Yeah. And there's another thing is that last year I think there's an incident where our performer, Ouyang Nana.
That's one of our performer.
There's actress.
Yeah.
He actually she was developing her career within mainland China, and there was, because right now in China there's a trend of like telling that okay, I do not support. You have to actively say, I do not support Taiwanese independence.
Yeah.
And she says that. And because in China you can't use like Facebook or certain social media, but you will see when this information comes to Taiwan, you see a lot of fake accounts, and they sometimes they look very real, but they're Chinese, and they will start to go to comment section, drop themselves right in, and like fight a war. And there's so many of them, you just can't outbeat them if you like. And other people just like, oh, I don't want to get into a mess because those people, or I don't know if there are people, if you try to like talk to them, they have like thousands of them. If you defeat one, 50 more will pop up. So it's like, do you really want to get into this fight? And if you don't, all the comment section will be taken over by them. And there's actually a name for them. It's called Wu Mao.
Oh yeah.
I think the official name should be Internet Army.
Yeah, Internet Army.
They try to manipulate the content on social media.
That how most people says it on social media. They're trying to make like a trend or like a public opinion for them. There's so many events that, and also in like media and like in the media circle, most artists or actors or singers, they want greater markets to go. So for their career, they will try the markets in China, and that represents that it will leads to that they have to state that I'm not supporting Taiwanese independence. But those public figure affects who follows them, where they're big fans. They know that their idols said that I don't support Taiwanese independence. And maybe their mind will change. So I think that's one part of how a Chinese government, just how the supporting not supporting Taiwanese independence, the whole thing is kind of a trick that was set by the Chinese government. I have a feeling that they just do this.
Yeah, and there's a very like strange thing about this, that you usually can't verify it. You just can't verify, because a lot of Taiwanese, they do business in China. They will accept money from China. So if a Taiwanese doing this, how can you extinguish it from you are pro-Chinese Taiwanese
or you're slightly pro-Chinese or not quite pro-Chinese?
It's actually quite sad
to quite classify.
And this is very like I would say severe, because it creates like the distrust among Taiwanese citizens. You will say that, all right, I will like post a information or a share a news with you. You will say that maybe it isn't as solid as you say.
So maybe now we can go back to this election and talk about our own perspective of this election. First, I would like to ask you to share about your own prediction about the consequence of the election.
Of this election?
Yes.
Okay.
So how about you, James?
I think before the election, I realized that Taiwan is, especially the younger generation, is very anti-China.
Yes, anti-China.
So naturally, the pro-Chinese, maybe KMT would be, not win the election. But what surprised me the most was actually they did not lose that much in the proportional,
legislator.
Yes. So that was quite a shock to me. I would say.
Yeah, my opinion is quite similar with James, and I just feel that what happened in Hong Kong just makes Taiwanese people so scared and so afraid of that Taiwan will become part of China. So actually, before the election, I feel like that DPP will win, that Miss Tai will win, but and still KMT wasn't losing that much as I predicted. I have predicted, So how about you, Brian?
Because in our department we analyze this a lot, and usually when we gather information, we don't think that we don't have generally hold a position and then we gather information. So in our perspective, it actually wasn't that solid that the DPP would win, because you see how little that, not how little, but just you see a lot of people still support Han Kuo-yu and the KMT government in general.
It's actually 5 million, they say.
Yeah, 5 million.
5 million people.
Yeah, so there was a prediction by some of our professors that if the electoral rate, voting rate, the voting rate was lower than 65%, because the Han Kuo-yu supporters will vote.
Yeah.
So
strong will.
Probably will win. He probably will win.
Yeah.
So it was actually hanging the balance. It wasn't as as solid as many people think, especially when the younger people they tend to have their like comfort zone.
Yeah.
So it's like, it was before the election we actually predicted it to be a close call, because you had to understand when your pension money is taken away, you will be very angry, and you just see every single like election campaign in different areas. There's so many Han Kuo-yu supporters gathered around, and you'll see the perspective of people might change, because they will say that, oh, maybe I will try because he might win. Who knows?
Well, for me, the most amazing part for this election is that originally I saw that the New Power Party will at least have 4 chairs in Congress.
They will win more,
because most of my friends they support the New Power Party because of one professional legislator who is Mr. Huang.
Who works very hard.
Yes,
who works very hard.
A war god in Congress.
Yeah.
But finally, the New Power Party only gets three chairs,
three
seats. And originally, I think that the voting rate will be high, since most young people, they are now aware of that they have to stand out to voice for themselves. They don't want to be unified or to be threatened by China, so they will go home and vote. So the voting rate will be high, and yes, that's pretty much.
Yeah, but there's another thing that I think is worth mentioning in this election, that I feel like people were driven by hate or fear. They're driven by some negative feelings and they go vote. But I think it's for me myself, I don't think it's a healthy, like it's not some healthy democracy.
It's quite distorted.
Yeah, it's quite distorted. Yeah, because yes, you make 2 parties fight with each other and fight loudly and affect everyone beside them. Definitely, everyone would like to choose which side they're going to go, and when each side is getting more extreme to their own ideology, you have to choose a side, or you're not able to stand in this society. So I don't think it's a healthy.
I don't think it's not necessarily all fear. I think it's also it's also the young people trying to make their voice heard.
Yeah.
In this election.
Yeah, but I think this part of fear affects that.
Yeah.
I think
definitely a part of young people are.
Yeah, in
affected by fear.
Political theory, there's actually 2 competing ideas on whether two-party system is healthy for society or not. One is called the medium voter theory. Is that, think about it, if you want to win, think of the preference of the electorate as the normal distribution. You see the most people actually stand in the middle. So it's called what is called a medium voter theorem is that if a party want to win over votes, they had to go to like not so extreme sides. They had to gain the support from the medium voters, and that will create stability over the country. That's what happened in like European countries or in United States. European countries meaning in
Western Europe,
United Kingdom. But however, there's another theory is that yes, the median voter theorem is correct, but that has to be built on the 2 parties. They have some sort of connection. For example, in the United States, the Democrats and Republicans, no matter how different they are, they will still agree on some value. For example, the patriotism of the United States. Or in Britain, they still at least recognize that the United Kingdom must be like the old democratic country and they respect rules of law, something like that. But in Taiwan, you have like on the ideology sense, completely different spectrum parties. So it inevitably turned into like this kind of election. But you have to see that in politics, it's not always about ideology. Because if you look at like the basic definition of power, it's basically the ability to distribute resources. So that's basically a lot of things happening in an election. But I think the most prominent thing is this, because as we all said, that I think most of Taiwanese people understand that whether we're going to be reunited or we're going to go independent, it's not going to happen soon. So what happens is that in each election, what we are deciding is actually like who gets what and when. That's basically what elections are doing. So for Taiwanese people, they're like tired. Why they are tired of DPP and KMT fighting each other is not because of they are not that concerned of the Taiwanese future. Is that they realize they were lying. They were hiding their own
something
behind. Behind the entire issue, they're fighting with each other. So that's why the third party and third power is getting more and more prominent. And what Daniel said was that he thought that the new power party was going to win. I think it wasn't so clear for us.
But it's still growing.
Because the most people they're voting for Taiwan, they may not vote for DPP. It doesn't mean they're going to vote for KMT, but they would like to vote for like a party that actually do things for them. And right now we're in Hsinchu. A lot of engineers who works here, they vote for the Ke party that is called the Taiwanese People Party. And why they were trying to market themselves was that we are the party that's going to work on technological issues. We're going to look at economy and figure this out. And the new power party, although they were trying to do this as well, but they are standing on the spectrum of like law reforms or like gender equality.
Like more left wing.
More left wing. So it's just generally third power is going to rise, but the distribution within this third power is probably not as like cut clean for like everybody thinks.
I think just eventually we have to recognize that those in democracy system, those parties or those public figures, actually there are leaders of all these opinions who support them. So it's like there's a spectrum throughout the. There's a spectrum of all those opinions on all kinds of different issues, and actually they're just trying to get more part of their cakes. They're just kind of more portion of their cakes, and they're trying to expand their places in their spectrum. So yes, we have to get and still have getting the idea that those people. There's some people who are gaining a lot of public voices who are not famous, renounced. They're renounced because there's some people supporting them. It's not because they're just showing some exaggerate performing. Because some other people they thought what he says or she says is good, is the future of our country. So I think eventually trying to talk with all these people and knowing how do they think about the issues we all facing together is the key point to make democracy into the next step. So let us just share some feelings or thoughts, since we're all just like the freshman voters. We have
a citizen.
First most freshman citizens. We have just voted for 1 or 2 times. How do you feel about voting or being part of the citizenship of the democracy world? How do you feel about that?
Actually, my own perspective changed quite a lot. Well, in the past, my perspective about politics is strongly influenced by my parents. Yeah. We always watch news when having dinners, and in the news, you can always see some negative report about the chaotic fight and ridiculous speech made by legislators in the Congress. This news is actually quite upset. And my parents always say that Taiwan is too free and too much noises. So the Congress is working low efficient. Even though the policy is good for Taiwan's future, but this policy will definitely be boycotted by the opposite party.
Yeah, but democracy is just low efficient. It's what it was.
Yeah.
But the malicious fight between two major parties really slowed the development of Taiwan.
Yeah, that would be true.
Even go backwards. Yeah. So my parents, and I think their ideal politics maybe should like the politics in Singapore, a strong and powerful government. They just work very efficiently, even though it will cost democracy, but they will feel these laws and acceptable laws. That's my perspective in the past. But now, so in the past, I think, because in the past we also witnessed the rapid growth of China. So I think maybe dictatorship is not so bad. It's really high
efficiency.
Yes, high efficiency. That's what I desire. Yeah. But now, after knowing the bad side of dictatorship and the importance of democracy, I think maybe low efficiency is one of the issues of democracy, but it's like a glue. It allows different voices, and
it's just like making everyone good with getting in consensus that everyone just feel good. It's hard, and it takes time to communicate with each other. So it will be low efficiency. It's just like it's cost, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's just
I think this transition starts from knowing the actual condition in China, maybe like the politics in Xinjiang or in Hong Kong. I know that democracy is maybe like a people's weapon to defend themselves.
Oh, yeah, that'd be true.
Their own right.
Yeah.
That's my perspective. Okay. How about yours, James?
How about yours, James?
I think it's very much the same as what Daniel just said, but I did not have the face that I don't agree with Singaporean or the Chinese way of doing things.
Yeah.
I think I was raised in more of like a traditional European style of, everybody can have a voice in the government, and then everybody can work things out, and everybody has to go to vote and let their voice be heard, I think.
Like for me, the greatest feeling I have in the two elections I've participated is that I feel like democracy or voting is kind of a grand ritual for all the peoples in this country. We're doing the same thing at the same day and all the same times. Everyone watching the TV channels, listening to radios, and even I'll go onto the street and everyone talks about elections, and it's just like some great festivals throughout the whole country. It feels very. I guess it's very magical. So I just the day before yesterday, the 11th, the election day, I just strolling through the street. I feel like all the world are connected with each other. Normally we're just maybe neighbors. We're not quite so familiar with each other. But suddenly we have something to talk about, or everyone's discussing about, who will be voted, who will be selected, which candidate would win. Everyone talks about that. So for me, the most special part of joining. I think it's like having the tickets to join that festival is to have the rights to vote. So I think this is the most special, the magical feeling for me joining these two elections. Yeah. So how about you, Brian?
The professional insights.
Oh, dare I say?
Okay.
All right. So I think in these the elections I have attended or I've seen, I think Taiwan is certainly changing.
Yeah.
I think it is changing the good way. In political theory or political philosophy, we think a lot about why people participate in public affairs, or why do we need to like have a form of politics, and even why do people want power? Yeah, it is the essential question that is being asked to every single person in history, and whether they have the decision, they have the power to make the decision or not. And what Taiwanese people are being asked right now, our big question is that what is politics?
Yeah.
And what is out to be? What should be? What should be? And that's what people are continuously asking themselves through the entire process of voting or not voting. Yeah, because if you don't vote, it's actually another kind of showing your thoughts. Yeah, and basically, I would say that these two questions, the same questions that my discipline has been worked for thousands of years. So, what do I think? I think nation or country is the most valuable asset a group of people could have. Think about all the inventions we have. Never have we before that we have a nation. They can like mobilize so many people, do so much great things, and we protect ourselves. We build walls and we create cities.
But not always great.
Not always great.
Right? Yeah.
So it is the right and the responsibility of the people to turn it into the form they wish for the best, and that is what democracy grant us. It creates an opportunity for us to like elect our own representative and discuss issues. Generally, just say what you want to say and hear other people saying things. And this is what authoritarian government cannot do. Yes, they can be quite effective. Yes, they can be quite proficient. But just think of that. Even President Xi right now in China has opposition.
Has opposition. Yeah.
How many oppositions have been oppressed? And these opposition, just like I said, when 1987 the KMT fell from their thrones, exploded.
Yeah.
So and a lot of the issues we're discussing today in these elections are actually the problems that have been passed down from that time.
Yeah.
So let's just give us an idea on what would happen if you don't have democracy.
Yeah.
But in Taiwan, we have a very interesting idea on doing things. We believe in professionals. We believe in professionals. For example, like Cohen-Zhe. We believe it because he's a doctor, so he's doing his own SOP thing. But that is on various kind of things, like in medical things.
Like in technical part.
Technical part of it. But in politics, we don't believe in politicians. Just look at the memes. How many memes have we created in these elections? And Taiwanese people are like, these people aren't very professional.
And they feel like those politicians are stupid. Just exaggerating all the performance to showing for the people, the stupid people.
And a lot of people grow very anxious or even angry at the situation. Some of them even lose their hope on democracy, saying that why do we keep why do we have to pay taxes to feed these people to rule over us? Well, there's actually an answer to that, and if I have to explain this answer thoroughly, it would take like 2 hours, but I'll just sum it up in simple words that in democratic politics, there isn't or even shouldn't have such professionals to dictate things for us. Because in democracy, we basically break down every power, every like authority we have and spread it to the people. There's a very good quote, a very good speech in the movie Robin Hood.
Robin Hood,
casted by Russell Crowe. It is a very like fighting movie, but
you reveal your edge.
What they say, there was a scene that Robin Hood rode with his boys to the great meeting with the British elites and King John to like discuss that. All right, French people are on our shore. Let's talk about this. Whether we're gonna defend this country or not, whether we are a country or not. Because if you see the movie or in history, King John was like, pay more taxes so I can play. So for the elites and the noblemen, they're like, nah, I don't want to get into this. I don't care. I can just hold in my own castle and hope that French people treat good at us. And that was the defining moment that the whole British nation came to be. People started to recognize Great Britain as a single country. And what Robin Hood said was that if you want to build a country, you have to build it like how you build a castle. You start it ground up.
Yeah.
You have to start it ground up. Empower every person. He used man, but he used person. Every person, so that they can protect the nation with their own power. So that's what democracy is doing. And that's what the entire, why we cast votes or why we go to election every 2 years, spend so much money, is that it's all about these simple things because we don't want to be dictated.
Yeah.
However, due to our history or due to the entire education thing, Chinese people haven't get to understand that. Yeah, it's like, but they're growing aware that if they don't participate, the politics their future is going to be decided, and that's why I think the future is going to the better way.
Yeah, education. Takes a great part, and for us, actually, we are the generation of the new education.
Yeah.
Of the Taiwan over the Taiwanese history. So I think it's getting progress, and we can see that maybe our next generation, most of them can be empowered by the knowledge, or I think it's the quintessence of democracy and what democracy means.
Yeah.
So, I think there's the point I have to agree to you very much is like. Democracy is like separating all these powers and authorities into everyone's hand. And it's also for us to knowing that we have the power to steer the whole country, even though it's still a very small part. But we can still... This is still the magical thing and the magical feeling that we can steal the whole power of the whole country. All those people, all 2,000 million people, we can get together and help my will. So I think this is the most magical part of democracy and also the key value of it. Okay, so I think here's for today. Thanks for Brian joining us.
That was such a lesson for us.
Such a lesson for us.
It's not something we hear every day.
Yeah, totally very lots of information for
very
us
enlightening,
to
I think.
Yeah, enlightening.
So we want to encourage you to follow us on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, anywhere you can find us, and also follow us on YouTube, on Spotify, and all that, and talk to us about the election. Did you go to vote? And share your thoughts with
maybe
us.
Tell us.
So we'll see you next week, like always. Bye.
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 Bye.